Hi all, in this video we're going to be looking at the Technical Graphics Ordinary Level 2019 question 5. This is a transformation geometry question that comes up every year. If we look, we can see this year's question is the design of a blue flag logo that be displayed at some beaches. So we can see the logo on the left hand side, and then we have the area of how we want to translate and move this object around. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to do first is we're going to set up the different points that we want to move this object to. So A1, A2, A3, and then find point P in the center. So to start that, I'm going to draw a light line across the middle of the page. Okay, and we can see that the first measurement we really need there is a measurement of radius 65. That's going to give us point A, A1, and then A2 at the bottom. So I'm going to mark off that first. So I'm creating my kind of cross in the middle of the page, and I'm going to mark up then, or mark out here, my measurement of radius 65. That'll give me the arc here to be able to find out the different measurements of stuff. So I'm going to put my point of my compass down in the center here, open up to the 65, and swing in this arc. This is only going to be a light line. It's just helping us to find out the different points on it. Once you've that done, we can go ahead and mark off the points we now have. So we've found point A, we've found point A1, and we found point A2 down here. So once you've that done, our next job is to try and find our last point A3. And again, if we look closely at the question, we can see there's two measurements down the bottom right, a 60 and another 60, and in between the two 60s give us point P. So we're going to mark off those, and I'm actually going to mark off both in one go, just to kind of speed things up for myself. So I'm going to mark off the 60 and then the 120. Once I have the 120, I can draw up my lines here then to A1 and down to A2. Okay, and again that allows me to find point A3 right here at the end. Once I marked off this point here at 60, I can draw a light line straight down, because that again will allow me to find out where point P is. So I'm just going to put some crosses then on these points just so I can clearly see them. So there's point A, then I've got A1 at the top. Okay, so it's just nice so that we can clearly see what all these points are and where they are. Okay, so we'll get through all those. P, and last but not least, our end point, which will be A3. So once you've that done, then you've got the position of all the different points. Our next job to do is to draw the logo itself. Now if we look closely at the logo, we can see that the radius of the question is a radius 30, and that's showing us into the center, and that's what's giving us the outside of this circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off 30 here, and that's going to give me the radius of this circle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that, and we can see again in the question that it's a heavy circle all the way around. We need the outside, so I'm going to draw that all the way around in heavy. Okay, so it's again obviously based on this circle that's radius 30 all the way around. Now I probably should have mentioned that that center we saw from the question is directly in line with A. So we came out from A, straight out from A, horizontally from A, and measured out 30 then on that. That was giving us where the center is. So that is really important to us. Again, we've got the center of A, we know what the radius is. If we look closely to the question then, we can see that there is two other radiuses. Okay, there's a radius 40 and a radius 30. And again, if we look closely to the question, where are we getting, where those radius start from? They're from the top measurements. We have a 15 to the left and we have a 25 to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and put in those. So I'm going to start with the 25 over here to the right. So from the center, I mark off 25. And that's going to give me this center point here. So I'm going to draw that in lightly. And from this center point, that is where I'm putting my radius of 30. We can see here in the question. Again, I know I already have my compass set up to radius 30 because that's what the center one was. So I can take that radius, mark it off from here. And again, it's obviously going to go through the center of the circle. I'm just drawing a light curve there. Okay. So once I've that done, I can now go ahead and draw the second radius to the left hand side. And again, if we look at the question, we can see it's over 15 and it has a radius of 40. So I'm going to mark off that. I'm going to mark out 15. Find out where the center is, where that intersects the circle. Okay, so we found that. And now I'm going to draw in my radius 40. So I'm going to open up my compass to radius 40. Okay, points the compass down where I found the center, where the 15 hit the outside of the circle, and I can draw in an arc. Now here's where the logo is laid out, but we don't want all this in light lines. We want to be able to see what's in heavy and what's in light. So I'm going to go now and draw in this radius 40 in heavy. Okay, so it's all the way from where the radius 30 arc is to the very outside of this circle. Okay, so that's the radius 40. I'm going to go back now and draw my radius 30. Okay, so point the compass back down on the center, and I'm going to open it up to the arc, and I'm going to make sure that it's from that 40 mil radius all the way to the outside. Okay, once you've that done, we've got our setup complete. But just to show us and have a bit of color on it, just to be able to see how the different parts. So I'm going to just shade this in quickly. So it's a blue flag logo. So you could assume maybe that the bottom part here maybe is to signify the waves or something. And I'm going to put that in blue, and just the bit of the top here, because it's a beach, that's colored in yellow. Okay, so it's just to see the different parts of the question. Okay, so it's just helpful to be able to know what is what. Okay, and some of the questions, it is important to have some shade on them. Some of them asks for it, but also some of them just so that you see what's going on. Now, before we go any further, we can see that there's some key points in this question. Okay, if we look closely, we've obviously got the center of the circle. So I'm going to mark that. I'm going to call that point C. Okay, we've got this point up here, which was my radius 40. So I'm just going to call that point 40. I've got this part here, which is my radius 30. Okay, that point. So I'm going to mark that point and call that point 30, just so I know that that is where my 30 radius from and this is where my 40. That does help us. And we're going to just mark this point here. Okay, so this is where the two arcs meet, and let's just call that point R, where the radiuses intersect. So they're the key points that we're going to try and find on all of these different views. So our next job, as we can see from the question, is to do part 1, which is from point A to A1 by a translation. So to do the translation then from A to A1, the first thing we need to do is we need to find out what angle and what distance there is between A and A1. So the first thing we're going to do is join those points together. Okay, so that is the angle and that is the distance I need to do my translation. So that's what we're doing. Remember, translation, we're just sliding this up. Now if we look closely, again, some of you will have figured out already that we know that because this is in a circle, we know that this angle is going to be at 45 degrees. So what we're going to do is we've got 4 key points, and we're going to find each of those 4 key points up here in our new view. So we're going to take one at a time. So I'm going to mark off my center, point C. So I draw the line up, because it's the same angle, up at 45 degrees. And then we take our compass, open our compass from A to A1, because that's going to be the distance. And I'm taking that distance and stepping it off from C. That's going to give me my point of, call it C1. So my center 1. Okay. I got to do the same with all my other ones. So I'm going to, next one, there's my 30. So I'm going to draw that up at 45 degrees. Take my distance from A to A1 and step that off. Okay, and what's this point we found? Well, let's call it 31. So it's the first 30 we found. Next job is to do the same with the 40. So I bring up the 40 at 45 degrees, take the distance from A to A1 and step that off from the point 40. And lo and behold, that is giving you 41. Okay, so our first one. The last point then we need to do is mark off the radius, or our R point, excuse me. So again, we go up at 45 degrees, take the distance from A to A1, put the points of the compass at R, and we mark that. And that there is again giving me my R1. So with that information then, we can actually go ahead and draw the logo. Now just so that you can see, what I'm going to do is I drew this line up in a yellow line at 45 degrees. So all these lines, yellow lines that I'm drawing out, are the exact same, okay? So they're the same angle, same distance. That's what our translation is all based on, okay? So you can see those, and hopefully this makes it nice and clear for us. Okay, so we draw that up at 45 degrees. Now that you've got all your points, okay, up here, our next job to do is to draw on the logo. Now, how we draw this logo, we're going to use the same setup that we used to draw this logo. So what was the first thing I did to draw this logo? Well, what I did is I drew a line straight out horizontally to the left hand side from A. Okay, well let's do the exact same with A1. So here's a line coming out horizontally from A1, okay, to the left hand side. And when we see that, that will intersect with our point C, our center C. So here, where we've marked it off already anyways, is my new center C. What did we do then? Well, we put the point of the compass on C and we opened it up to A. Well, we do the same from C1 to A1, and we drew in our circle in heavy all the way along. Okay, that was the outside of my logo. So lo and behold, that's exactly what I'm going to do again. Okay, so that gives me the outside of the logo. What do I do next? Well, next then we've measured across and we found our point of where we're drawing our arc on 30. But we've already found that, okay? So we brought it up and we can see it's right here at the outside of this circle. So what I'm going to do is, what did we do? We put the points that comes on 30 and we drew an arc. Well, we know how big the arc is going to be open to, because it has to open up to my R1, the exact same as this arc, opens up to point R down here. So that's why we found this point, so it's easier. And I draw an arc at a light arc there, okay, because we don't know where it's going to stop. What we do is suppose it's at R, so we can just mark that in maybe. So let's make things easier for ourselves. So we can draw a heavy arc all the way up to R, okay. What did we do then? We put the points of the compass on at our 40 mark. We opened it up to radius 40 and we drew in another arc. Again, I don't need to measure anything because I found point R. So point the compass on this radius 40 up here, open it up to point R, and I'm drawing that a heavy arc all the way to the left hand side there. Once you've that done, that is our logo complete up in our new part. So again, I can just shade in the different parts so we can see that the exact same as we did down below. So we can see the wave again maybe here, and it's going pointing up towards the right hand side of our circle. That's going to be important because it's not always going to appear that way. So I'm going to just shade in the top of this then here again in yellow, just the exact same as we had on the other side. And at that stage then, folks, we have our translation fully complete. So I'm just going to write down what we've just done. So that is a translation from A to A1. So next, as you can see from the question, we need to look at an axial symmetry, and that's going from A1 to A2, and the line of axial symmetry is the line AA3. So our axial symmetry then again, as we said, is coming between A and A3. So we're going to just mark off that to show us that that is the axis between A and A3. So it's across the center here. And I'm just going to mark on that that there is my axis. So again, remember with axial symmetry, what are we doing? We're flipping it over this axis line. So it's like a mirror image of this. Okay, so as we see in, we're going to see the reflection of that. So how do we do this again? Well, remember, we draw it from A to A2. That's what we're doing. It's across the axis. It has to come across at 90 degrees. So I go from A1 to the axis. It's meeting at 90 degrees. Whatever the distance from the point to the axis, So that distance there is the exact same as the axis to the new point on the opposite side. So those distances there are the exact same. We have to do that now with each of our critical points up here. So we're going to do that. So let's start with, again, the center. So we bring the center down, whatever distance it is from the axis. So I put the point of the compass on the axis, open it up to the point we want to move, which is point C, the center point, and we swing it down. Leave the point of the compass on the axis and we mark that down. So the distances here are going to be the exact same. Okay, again, just to show you, let's mark it off in blue. The distance from the center to the axis is the exact same as, so the axis to the point is the exact same as the axis to the new point. So those are the same. Okay, and what does that give us? That's giving us here point C2. Okay, let's do the next one, which is maybe the 31 here. Okay, so again, draw a light line down. They all have to meet at what angle? 90 degrees. Okay, at right angles. What do we do? The point of the compass goes on the axis. We open it up to the new point, or the point we want to find. Okay, so that's up here, and we swing it all the way down. Okay, and down that here is now giving me my 30 and my 0.2 of that. Okay, again, just to show you with the blue lines, from the point to the axis is the same as the axis to the new point. Okay, so again, we're just marking that. So hopefully all these colors and labeling everything just makes things a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, that is the whole plan of this. You don't need to do these on your sheets. Some of you will want to. It makes things a little bit easier to remember and good for revision. I'm going to do the exact same with the 40, the first one. So I put the point of the compass down where the line meets the axis at 90 degrees, open up to the new, or to the old point, keep the point on the axis and swing it down to the new one. Okay, so that's giving me my radius 40 and number 2, because we're at A2 here. Last but not least is the R, okay, where the two radiuses meet. So at 90 degrees to my axis, point the compass down where that line meets the axis, open it up to the old point, okay, and take that distance and move it to the other side. Okay, and that there is giving me my R2. Again, just to put some color on those lines and some arrows. So from the point to the axis is the same as the axis to the new point. Okay, and same with this one over here, apologies. So let's knock that one in. So from 40 to the axis is 40 is the axis to the new 40. Okay, so V1 is the fifth one. Okay, so down here. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, we're going to use these points, we're going to draw them the exact same way as we drew this. So where was the center? It is horizontally directly outside from A. Okay, so there's A2. So the center is directly horizontally to the left of that. Okay, so there we go. And again, we find it where this line intersects my center point. We've already found this center point. That's really important. It's not always going to be horizontally to the left of A2, just like it is here. We have to keep that in mind. So I'm just coming across again from where my A is to my C is. You can only just draw those across. What I'm going to do then is put the point to my compass. What did we do here? At C, open up to A. So we put it at C2 and open up to A2. That is my radius 30. And I'm drawing in that circle all the way around, and that goes in heavy. Okay, so that is a heavy circle all the way around. What did we do then? Well, we found our radius 30 point and we opened it up to radius 30, and from point R we drew it in. So radius 30 from point R, and I'm drawing it all the way over here. How do I know I'm going to this side? Well, again, the end of this arc is underneath the 30 each time. Okay, so there's my 30, so it ends up in here. So little things like that can make things a lot easier. What do we do then? Well, we found our center radius 40, okay, and we opened it up to R, which was at my radius 40, and I swung this over here in heavy to the left hand side. Why did I do that? because again, it touched this outside the arc of the circle directly underneath 40. So that's what I did there. When you've that done, we can again shade in that. Okay, so again, the bottom part here was in blue. So let's shade that there in blue. And the top part here was in yellow. Okay, so again, let's just shade that in. And at that stage then, we have our second part done. And again, if we remember, what is this? This here is my axial symmetry. And where did we go? We went from A1 to A2. So our last part, again, if we look closely to our question, we can see it is part 3 of the question. And this is central symmetry from A2 to A3. And we have to go through point P. To do that, so we're going from A2 through point P here to A3 as it said in the question. So again, just to put some color on that, I'm going to go from A2. Okay, so all the points have to go from the point through point P and on to the next point. Whatever the distance is from the original point to my central point, point P, is the exact same as from my central point to the new point. Okay, on the new image. So we've got this done. Our next job is to do the exact same thing as we just did with all the other ones. We're going to go one point at a time. So I'm going to go from C through point P, okay, and extend it on. Okay, what did we say our rules was? Well, we put the points of the compass on a center point, point P, open it up to the old point, this is the old C, and I'm swinging it all the way around. Okay, and where it hits this new line is giving me my new point. That there, I'm going to call it C3 because we're at the third one here. So again, if we just put some color on this then. So from the point, okay, from the old point through point to point P, so that distance is the exact same as point P all the way to the new one. So that distance is the same as this distance, okay? Next one, let's do the radius 30 here. So from the old point through point P, extend it on, point the compass then at point P, open it up to the old point, take that, keep it your point at point P, move it around until it goes to the other side of the line, and that gives us my next one. So that's my 30, radius 30, and it's the third one of those. Okay, again, just to show you that in color. So from the old point through point P is the exact same as point P to the new point. So that distance there is the exact same as this distance here. Okay, next one is radius 40. So from radius 40 through point P, extend that all the way on, point the compass at point P, open it up to the radius 40, whatever that distance is, keep the point of the compass at point P, and it's the same on the opposite side. So that there is my 40 radius. Okay, I'm going to call that the fourth one. Again, let's look at that using our color. So from the point here on our old image through point P, extend it all the way on until it hits my radius. So this distance here, that distance V, is the exact same as this one up here. Okay, last but not least, we've got our R, okay, where the two arcs meet. So there, through point P, extend it on, point to the compass at point P, put it down to R in the old one, keep the points of the compass the same, and mark off where R, the new one, is. So that's going to be R4. Okay, what do we do then? What did we do? Well, we knew that C2 and A2 were horizontally away from each other. So there's A3 and C3 horizontally away. So that's giving me the center of this arc, or of the circle. What did we do then? Well, we put the point of the compass on the center point, which is my C3. I open it up to point A. Okay, so this is my A3 this time. And we're drawing a heavy circle all the way in around here. Okay, What did we do then? Well, we found our radius 30 point. We have that here. What did we do then? We opened it up to R4 and we're drawing a heavy line. Where does that go? It goes directly underneath the 30. So it's directly underneath here. And that's a heavy arc all the way to that side. What did we do then? We found the radius 40. Have that. What do we do then? We open that up to the radius to point R. And again, we're drawing a heavy arc, radius 40, all the way directly to the outside of the circle underneath the radius 40 point, just like we did with each of these. Once you've done, that is that part of the question done. We're just going to put a bit of shading onto it so you can see the different parts. So we've got the yellow part at the top, okay, and then we've got this blue kind of, maybe as I said, wave part here to the bottom. Okay, and that there then is our central symmetry, so we'll just mark that. Central symmetry. And we went from where? A2 to A3. Okay, and again, if we just look at this one, so it's basically the same as this, except it's flipped over and flipped over again. Okay, so we can see that we started off here with the radius 30, the smaller part here is to the right, and if we look here, we've ended up with it to the left. Down here it was all upside down. Okay, so they go through those different patterns. So that there is the Technical Graphics Ordinary Level 2019 question 5, our transformation geometry of the blue flag logo. Hopefully this video helps you with your homework and revision of this topic. Good luck.